Good evening, everyone. If you'd all join us in the Pledge of Allegiance, we'll get our meeting started. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Welcome, everyone. It's nice to see so many faces here tonight. Usually we get right into some recognitions, but tonight we have a very special bit of business we need to do. As those of you may be aware, we had Christy Klein Davis leave our ranks a couple of weeks ago, or last week was her last day. She moved with her family to another city, so her board seat was vacated, and through a process last month, we have appointed Mrs. Tiffany Mapp Franklin, and so she will join Mrs. Stover at the podium, and she will be sworn in as our newest board member.
Do you want to repeat after me? Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Missouri,
and the Constitution of the State of Missouri,
and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of school director
discharge the duties of school director
in and for the Parkway School District,
in and for the Parkway School District,
County of St. Louis, State of Missouri,
County of St. Louis, State of Missouri,
to the best of my ability and according to law,
to the best of my ability and according to law,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
We'll get a chance to hear from Tiffany in just a little bit during our board liaison reports. So tonight we do have some recognitions. First, John Duvall will introduce us to the students selected for the Missouri Scholastic and Art and Writing Awards, Gold Key Awards. After him, Mike Roth, District Athletics and Activities Director, will introduce our state sports champions. And then we'll honor our Energy Star Award and school winners. So first, I'd like to welcome Mr. John Duvall, Middle School Interdisciplinary Coordinator, ELA Social Studies in Reading.
Thank you. If you are here to be recognized, would you join me up at the podium? Good evening, Dr. Marty, President Todd, members of the board. As the middle school coordinator of ELA and Social Studies, it gives me great pleasure to recognize this group of students tonight. They've been selected for the Missouri Scholastic Art and Writing Gold Key Award. Jurors of this contest look for works that exemplify the award's core values of originality, technical skill, and the emergence of a personal voice or vision. With creativity, expertise, and a unique point of view, these students demonstrated they have taken to heart our mission of being capable, curious, caring, and confident. So the following students have been recognized by this award: Sana Abu Antoun, Hannah An, Elisa Chen, AJ Eisenberg, Mira Nalbanian, Catherine Rowland, Michaela Snitzer, Jack Watts, and Matthew Whaling. Tonight, receiving their recognitions are Hannah An, and Mira Nalbanian. You guys want to
Next, I'd like to invite Mr. Mike Roth to join us. And as he's walking up, I would like to point out that this is probably the last time you will see Mike at a Parkway board meeting. It's because he's moving on. He's retiring after 30 years. He's been with the district, he was with the district a long time at West High as a teacher and a football coach, and probably wore a few other hats. Then he spent a few years as the athletic director at Central High, and then for the last 6+ years, he's been, or eight years, he's been the district's athletic director, and has done an admirable job in lots of different circumstances. And we are going to miss you, but wish you well in your next endeavor just down the road.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that.
Yep.
On behalf of the Board of Education and Dr. Marty, it's my honor and privilege as the Director of Athletics and Activities to introduce our state champions for the 2022 spring track season. This year we are honoring many athletes for their achievements. First, starting with Parkway North. So if I could have Sophia, please come on up with your coach. Sophia is a senior, and she won the Misha Class 4 pole vault competition with a vault of 3.66 meters, and they just switched over the meters a couple years ago. I had to think, well, that's 12 feet, which is amazing. She beat the second place finisher by 7 inches, so congratulations to Sophia on her state championship. Head coach is Melinda and Weise. Congratulations. Next, we have Parkway Central, so if I can have my athletes and my coaches please come forward for Parkway Central. We have several athletes to recognize. This year, the Parkway Central girls track and field team won the Misha Class 4 state championship with 78 team points, outdistancing second place West Plains by 25 points. Truly a dominating performance in Jeff City by the Colts. This championship was their first state championship in girls track and field, so congratulations there. That's awesome. Team members include, and we have a lot of them that could not be here, but if you're here, please kind of give us a wave when I announce your name. Sophia Bain, Kate Benoit, Michael Green, Karen Lee, Sky Lee, Lily Morales, Nena Opora, Gia Owens, Carrie Pufa, Aaron Rare, Josie Robinson, Grace Sieber, Kaylin Tate, Jaden Wallace, and Sarah Williams. Coaches, head coach is Ryan Banta. Assistant coaches Ben Silvermans, Ollie Gossedy, Kathy Burnett, Christian Schaefer, and also helping is Steve Warren on the boys' side, but also helped out with the girls' team. Besides our team state championship, the Colts had several athletes win individual state championships. These include, in the 200-meter dash, Kaylin Tate, a senior. She ran a 24.48, setting a school record. She also placed second in the 100-meter dash, so congratulations. In the 100-meter hurdles, Sky Lee, Sky is only a sophomore, she set the Misha state record with a time of 13.84, also setting a school record, so congratulations to her. Besides the 100 hurdles, she also won the 300 hurdles state championship with a time of 43.76, so 2 championships in the hurdles by Sky, only a sophomore, truly amazing. Besides our individual awards, we also had 2 relay teams that placed first. The 800-meter relay, which is also known as the 4x2, first place with a time of 1:39.49, beating the second place team by almost 4 seconds. So that's a long way in a relay. Setting the school records, senior Nina Akpora, Sky Lee, Michael Green, and Kaylin Tate, another state championship, congratulations. And also in the 1,600-meter relay, that's the 4x4, everybody runs 1 lap, and it's a tough race. It was really great this year because it's the last race of the day, and with those points, that kind of culminated the state championship, scoring 78 points. So in the 4x4, had a time of 3:58.42, Nina Akpora, Sky Lee, Michael Green, and Kaylin Tate. So a lot of the same members scoring points, truly outstanding performances at the state meets. At this time, I would also like to recognize all the parents of our state champions. So if you're here, please stand. Thank you for your support and encouragement throughout the years. I've seen you around at many events throughout the years, and you guys are awesome. Thank you for all you do. In closing, not only are we proud of our state champions, but we're proud of them for being great leaders in our schools. Good luck to our seniors next year in college, and we look forward to watching our underclassmen compete next year in Parkway. Congratulations, and thank you very much. Good job.
Next up, we have Mrs. Patty Bedborough, our CFO, who's going to talk about our schools that are honored. And you have hardware, look at that. It doesn't make noise like the girls' hardware, though. That was pretty impressive.
No clinks. So first this evening, I would like to recognize our 18 buildings that have been awarded with the 2021 Energy Star from the U.S. Department of Energy. As you can see, represented here are 12 elementary schools, 3 middle schools, 2 of our high schools, and of course Fern Ridge, our program high school as well. Their certificates have been mailed to each of the buildings for recognition. In addition, tonight, we have received for the second year in a row the Energy Star Partner of the Year Award. We were proud to share this earlier with you this year, and this is the second time that we have won this award. This is an annual award. The EPA honors organizations that have made outstanding contributions to protecting the environment through superior energy efficiency achievements. The award recognizes Parkway's comprehensive approach to energy efficiency and conservation, including our capital replacements, our retrofits, our new construction design, and our student and staff engagement. Through the Better Building Challenge, Parkway has committed to reduce energy by 20% by the year 2025, and we have surpassed that goal, and we are working on obtaining a 25% energy reduction by 2025. The Partner of the Year Award recognizes Parkway's year-over-year commitment to the energy improvement, and the key accomplishments include reducing the district's energy use by 48% since 2010, achieving the Energy Star certification for 18 schools in 2021, integrating the ASHRAE's 50% advanced energy design guidelines into our specifications for all building renovations, so including when this building was added, engaging students and staff in energy activities through the Sustainability Challenge Award. The curriculum connects with such things as energy audits, teaching others about how to conserve energy, and learning about the solar arrays that are at each and every one of our buildings. Special thanks go to, of course, our sustainability leadership, along with Ralph Neese, our Director of Facilities, and James Swingle, our Manager of Planning and Construction. And especially thank you to our Board of Education and our administration leadership for supporting the programs such as the Better Building Challenge and the integration of the ASHRAE 50% Advanced Energy Design Guidelines for all of our new construction and capital replacement projects. And with that, we can display this right by you, President Todd. And then we'll put it out in our Welcome Center
Awesome.
for later. It's not in your line of sight, is it?
No.
Okay.
No.
You can,
And I can see through it.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. congratulations to all the students and the schools that we honored this evening, and thank you all for joining us for these special recognitions. We'll take a quick break in a minute, but first I'd like to welcome Dr. Chelsea Watson to introduce a couple of new administrators who weren't able to attend last month's board meeting.
Thank you. Good evening, President Todd, Vice President Hopper, members of the board, Dr. Marty, and Mrs. Stover. As Dr. Todd said, I have the honor of introducing two of our new building principals this evening. First, I'd like to invite Melissa Shavy to join me here at the podium. As she is coming, Melissa will be the principal of Hannah Woods Elementary School starting July 1st. Dr. Shavy currently serves as the assistant principal at Hannah Woods Elementary School. Previously, she was an assistant principal at Highcroft Ridge Elementary School. Prior to these leadership roles, she was an instructional coach at Parkway Central Middle, and she began her career 12 years ago as an elementary teacher and a middle school teacher here in Parkway. During the interview process, we have the opportunity to seek feedback from parents and staff, and I want to read you a few of the comments that were shared with us. I love how Dr. Shavy talked so much about shared leadership. Something she brought up during her interview was to make sure that there is a strong partnership for all. Honestly, the more she talked, the more I thought, this is really someone I want as a role model for my daughter. Her value for the relational aspect combined with data is important because for our children, we need both. And the last comment I'm going to share with you is, I was impressed the most by Dr. Shavy's thoughts on social justice and equity. I appreciated her thoughts on our children needing to build their own identities and wanting to know they are loved and that they matter. Congratulations, Dr. Shavy. Please join me here at the podium and have a few minutes with our community and our board. Welcome, Dr. Shavy.
Good evening, Dr. Marty, President Todd, and members of the board. I am incredibly honored to be selected as the next principal at Hannah Woods Elementary. As a Parkway alumni, I know the importance that the community plays in creating students that are capable, confident, curious, and caring. It is my mission to continue to give back to Parkway all that Parkway has given to me. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I would like to introduce to you Tracy Smith. And Tracy will be the new principal at Ross Elementary School beginning on July 1st. Tracy Smith brings over 20 years of experience as she joins the Ross community. She's currently an elementary assistant principal in the Hazelwood School District. Prior to this leadership role, she was an instructional coach and taught in the classroom and taught nearly every elementary grade level. She began her career 24 years ago as a 5th grade teacher in the Rockwood School District. Some of the feedback that we received after Tracy's interviews are, Ms. Smith seems to have a zest for education, and that came across in her interview. She was very good at explaining how she wants to get teachers, parents, students involved and feeling valued. She's very calm, thoughtful, and direct in her responses. Her examples were in-depth and also very practically communicated. During the interview, I felt the comfort and ease of being able to talk with her about any concerns. She wants to build positive relationships with students. She wants to get to know us inside of school and outside of school. She also understands our data and wants to focus on ELA and mathematics. And the last comment I will share with you this evening is, through her interview, I could feel her vibrancy and eagerness to be at Ross. She seemed very excited, and I could feel her passion through the camera. Please welcome Tracy Smith, our next principal here at Ross Elementary School.
Good evening. I am so excited to be here. Good evening, Dr. Marty, President Todd and the board, thank you so much for this opportunity. I just want to say that it is definitely my pleasure to be the new principal at Ross Elementary School. And before I sit down, I have to explain to you how amazing your administrative team is. That action team is absolutely awesome, and they exhibit the character education that you guys teach here, and it made me even want to be here even the more. So thank you guys so much. And if you could give them a raise, go ahead and do that, because they represent you well. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. It's great to have you join us, and we can't wait to come visit you in your new buildings and see the great things you will be doing. At this time, we'll take a quick recess, and we'll resume the meeting shortly. Okay, if everybody's ready, we will resume our meeting. Next up, I have 7.0 additions, corrections, and/or modifications to the agenda. Those include 7.01, addendum to agenda item 11.11, approval of personnel items, and 7.02, addition of agenda item 11.48, approval of gifts from the public, South Middle School. Next up is public comments, and it's during this time that we provide an opportunity at our meetings for citizen comment in an effort to maintain an open and respectful dialogue with our community. The public comment section is not the appropriate time for addressing individually identifiable student and/or personnel matters. Therefore, due to privacy laws protecting students and employees, comments about these matters should not include personally identifiable information about particular students or employees. Members of the public, staff, and students are encouraged to use established policies and procedures for offering suggestions or addressing concerns and complaints prior to bringing the issue before the board. Please be mindful that the meetings of the board, including your statements at the podium, are broadcast and that you are responsible for any public comment you make. In lieu of a public comment, you may choose to submit your comments to the board in writing. Also, due to time constraints and the need to complete the primary responsibilities of our meeting agenda, we cannot respond during the meeting, so you will receive a response from us in writing. We are always available to have an open dialogue outside of our meetings and can be reached by email or phone using the contact information on the Parkway website. Tonight we have, I believe, 3 speakers. They will each have 3 minutes in which to make their comments. I will call you to the podium in order that you signed up. And I'd ask that you share your name and your relationship or affiliation with Parkway, and we will proceed. First up, I have Caroline Schroeder. And friends.
Good evening, board members. My name is Caroline Schroeder, and I am representing the class of 2028 at Parkway South Middle. I am here today to present our case as to why our class deserves a Camp Lakewood experience as part of our middle school growth and development. I would like to read from an essay I wrote that was included in a petition over 90 of my classmates signed. Dear members of the Parkway Board of Education, have you ever missed out on an amazing opportunity? The incoming 7th graders at Parkway South Middle School have. I bet one thing that comes to mind is how they missed out on the pleasure of 6th grade Camp Lakewood. As incoming 7th graders, we have been waiting for the word on the next big field trip. The class of 2029 has secured a trip to Camp Lakewood in the spring of 2023. So why can't we go too? We have been missing out on Camp Lakewood. The grade has been begging for a real 6th grade camp and not the field trip to Babbler State Park, where we learn how to build fires and how to survive in the wilderness. I asked many of the students that have been on this field trip, and most of them admitted that they thought it was underwhelming and that it was not a memorable experience. 6th grade camp has always been about the fun activities, like horseback riding, arts and crafts, archery, canoeing, team building, and hanging out overnight with our friends. Our class has not yet been granted the right set of circumstances for 6th grade camp, and we will not even get to go as 6th graders because the school year is over. The class of 2028 would like to be the exception. Please allow us the chance to experience the joy of a 7th grade Camp Lakewood. We believe it is very unfair that it was taken away from us. The class of 2028 is asking the board for 7th grade Camp Lakewood so we can have the opportunity to learn outside of the building. We would like to start the conversation to get our Camp Lakewood dates on the books as soon as possible. We need 7th grade Camp Lakewood for the class of 2028. Thank you for your time. Sincerely, Caroline Schroeder.
Thank you very much. Next up, we have Tracy Goldstein.
Before I begin, great job. I love seeing that. Good evening. My name is Tracy Goldstein. I have a daughter that attends Parkway Central Middle School. She just turned 12 in April. On March 1st of this year, I received an email from my daughter's ELA teacher, who I love. The title of this email was called ELA Activism Unit. Before I get into the email itself, I would like to comment on my feelings about teaching activism to 11 and 12-year-olds. I personally am an activist. I'm a co-founder of a non-for-profit organization. And as a result of my activism, I have been threatened, spit on, harassed, and had to have security cameras placed around my home. And while I realize that there are a few brave children that have done amazing activism work, I do not think it is the responsibility of this school district to be teaching our children activism. Turning to the email itself, this unit had two components. The first was, quote, students have been researching several teen activists and writing essays about one of 5 different topics, going from why they got started as activists, effects on the community, obstacles, and so forth. The questions I have for the board are, first, who are the teen activists that we're allowing our children to learn about? And what is the cause that these teen activists stand for? And finally, would I as a parent want my child wanting to learn about that cause? Meaning, is it age appropriate? The second paragraph of the email is where I became extremely troubled. And I say in quotes, during the second half of the unit, students will choose an activism topic that they are passionate about and research and write about it. Right there, I love that. The following topics are options for research: animal rights, children's education / women's education, environmental issues, child labor, or LGBTQ+ issues. There was an ability for me to opt out. However, I want to understand, if we're trying to take these kids and make them activists, why is there a list? So I inquired with the teacher, and the teacher said, and I quote, "It is a district-approved list." I find that very troubling. We're supposed to be educating children, pushing them to be their best, not indoctrinating them with 5 topics that we think are good for them to write about. We need to teach our children to dig into their souls, find the things that might be passionate for them. Maybe a child is upset because the designated hitter rule shouldn't be applicable in baseball. Whatever drives a child, it shouldn't be what the school district dictates. In conclusion, my ask is that we remove any lists in guiding children for what they should be writing for. My second request is that we call it a persuasive writing unit and not call it activism. And finally, I will conclude by saying this, and that I believe of being part of a solution, not just coming up here and complaining. So I am saying to you that I would like to serve on a committee that deals with curriculum. I would like to be a part of the community. And I ask that the board respond to my request and also engage me further. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up, we have Ryan Kerr.
The pandemic response plan produced and executed by the Parkway Board of Education over the past 6 months has been much different than the plan in the previous year or so. What changed? Data. Data no longer supported the most basic provisions of the PRP due to the variable nature of science and a basic understanding of mutation in virology. The rescinding of summer school mask mandate is a brilliant glimpse into the irrational thought process and decision-making related to the pandemic response plan over the past 6 months. When I received the email regarding institution of mask for summer school programs, my first thought was based on what? And this is where I work in. This is very similar to how the CDC uses hospital admissions as a metric, but doesn't account for the discharge rate. The weather forecast stated for the decision to rescind the mandate had been posted 28 days prior. The official heat advisory came out on Sunday at 3 p.m. from the National Weather Service. Decisions based on and determined by individual preference or convenience, rather than by necessity or intrinsic nature of something seemingly at random, with no restraint or limit in the exercise of power, is the definition of arbitrary. I have inquired about 28 items related to health choices in the past 6 months and received one response. We follow the CDC guidelines. The CDC community threshold guideline was 5% positivity for school systems, but the attorneys, educators, business people of the Board of Education knew more than the CDC and decided on a 2% positivity threshold for requiring masks. The definition of arbitrary. The bus driver issue as accurately pointed out by many on social media, is a problem throughout the whole country, not just Parkway, amidst worker shortages and massive fluctuating pay scales throughout industries. It, however, is hard for me to understand how you make assumptions that 1,000 more kids will ride the bus this coming year when we haven't even signed up for the bus service, which is tomorrow. Wouldn't it also be prudent to send out a district-wide email explaining the importance of the situation and asking parents that are more privileged to do the right thing here and take their children to school? $17.75 an hour isn't going to cut it, considering the obtainment of a very strict CDL license and being able to obtain the same amount of pay at Target as a cashier with zero responsibility. It is time that we value our bus drivers the same as we value our teachers. I conducted some interviews with them, and they want salaries. They want 12-month paychecks. They don't want to have to search for other jobs. Parkway is a leading school district in the state of Missouri, and to be a leader, you must lead by example and set precedent. We bought our home 10 years ago. We had no children, but we chose our home based with the plan of having children and wanting them raised in the Parkway School District. My wife grew up in the Parkway District, graduated, and went on to obtain a bachelor's in nursing, and has had a storied 15-year career as a phenomenal nurse. My mother-in-law gave 45 years of service to this district in various areas, including the special school district. The reason I bring this up is that the Board of Education must realize the extreme and dedicated planning of parents in the district that want their children provided the best possible education for life advancement. It's time to leave politics, false narratives, virtue signaling, and differences behind to cohesively advance the system of education for our children.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much to all of our speakers tonight. Next up, may I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda for the regular meeting of the Board of Education as scheduled for June 15th, 2022?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. The next regular board meeting will take place on Wednesday, August 10th, 2022, beginning at 7 p.m. right here at the Parkway Welcome Center. Next up, we have board and superintendent reports. We'll start down with Matt.
All right, I'll touch on three things tonight. First, welcome to Tiffany to our board tonight. We're glad to have you on here. And then this past Saturday, Jeff and I attended the Missouri School Board Association Delegate Assembly in St. Charles, and it really kind of touched on some of the issues we are dealing with nationally in school safety. And the Missouri School Board Association is bringing in a consultant that actually went into Columbine after their shooting and just mentioned some very sobering comments. And I just want to kind of share that, just so everybody's aware too, that for the school board, we have gone through the 4E intruder training. I think some of us have been too, going to the high schools for the intruder training itself too with the students. It is not a fun experience, but I am hopeful that we are looking at multiple different ways to attack the situation around school shootings and addressing it both at the federal, state, and local level. But the answer cannot be just hardening our schools. We have to find other solutions to deal with the problem. And the way it was mentioned on Saturday is it's been a 25-year epidemic, and as adults, it's still our problem. We have not fixed this yet. We're still dealing with it. And I'm hopeful over the next few months we can see some progress around gun safety and just keeping our kids safe as possible when they are at school. So that's my negative, sad part of this. And then just to kind of bring it back up again real fast, really the graduations. It was great to be back in St. Charles at Family Arena for the graduations. Just having the kids come across the stage. Some were nervous, some were excited, some were bored, but it was just a fun, it just the culmination of why we're here, to get the kids to that point and excited to have them move on to the next phase of their life and knowing that they've got a great education behind them to hopefully serve them well in the future. So I'll end there.
I also want to echo Tiffany, welcome. I know you'll be wonderful. Granted, I'm very new as well, so we're doing this together. To kind of touch on the graduation, this was obviously my first graduation ceremony. I was luckily able to go to Parkway South, and it was amazing. I remember going to Queenie Park when I graduated from Parkway Central. This was a very good departure from Queenie. I could actually feel myself versus everybody being on top of each other. It was wonderful, shaking all the hands. It was a great experience, especially for my first one. On Friday, I did an all-day MSBA training for my first year. All my training is done, which is great. It was great having insight from other districts. There were 45 new school board members at the training on Friday, some large districts, some small districts, urban, rural. It was a great opportunity to kind of pick everyone's brain about what they are seeing already in their districts or what they aren't seeing in their districts. So it really was great, and I look forward to the future with regards to further trainings and things like that, and look forward to a good summer.
I too am excited to serve with Tiffany. Welcome on board, to the board. And I would also, although these fellows have kind of stole my thunder, I'd also say that being part of a graduation was so very exciting. I got to attend Fern Ridge, Parkway North, look forward to attending others next year, but just sort of the different types of learners, the different children who've had a myriad of different experiences all coming together in that moment and walking across and receiving their diploma was just absolutely inspiring, and I enjoyed it, and it was a wonderful personal experience. And as I think about that transition for those kids going out and starting whatever's next for them, I have the personal joy of having a child go into the Jumpstart program, which is a program for kindergartners to be, and that's at Claymont, but I know it's happening all around the district. And just sort of that realization of what the next several years will look like is very exciting for me personally, but also getting to watch the Parkway summer camp experience and what it's like, and all the enthusiasm I see in the children and the teachers that I've gotten to interact with is just wonderful. So yeah, ready to get through summer and look forward to the school year starting up again.
Good evening. So I don't have much to say, but thank you for welcoming me to the board. I am excited for this coming school year. I'm excited to get into the different schools and meet all the different administrators. I believe I've had the opportunity to talk to all of you, even if it was just a few minutes. So I'm really looking forward to working with you all as we continue to move Parkway forward.
Well, welcome. We're very pleased to have you, and please know you can reach out to any of us at any time for support, and know that we'll be there to help lead you along the way. But we're very excited that you're joining us, so welcome. Congratulations. On my two reports, in addition to graduation, I attended West High graduation, and again, spectacular. Love the evening. The student speakers are phenomenal. They are voted upon by their peers to speak, and they always amaze and do a wonderful job. So kudos to our students and our graduates this year. The other thing that I've done so far, on Saturday, June 4, I attended the St. Louis PLC, which stands for Professional Learning Community meeting. It was a culmination of board representation from all of the St. Louis County school districts, and I would say that the majority of those districts were all in attendance. The big item that we discussed were the legislative session that had just concluded. What was reported at that day, Paul Ziegler with Ed Plus did a phenomenal job with reporting on the legislation. It's a high number of legislation was filed in this year. The Senate had over 680 bills and resolutions filed, and the House had over 1,650 bills and resolutions filed. And ultimately, there were 66 bills and resolutions passed by the chambers and sent to the governor's desk. What passed that is important for the school districts right now, I think the one major one for us is Senate Bill 681. A lot of this was started out as a reading intervention bill. It then evolved into an educational omnibus bill because of a lot of the different changes that had been made to it. There's a lot of elements in it, a lot of a lot of good things and things that we're just going to kind of take us to pause a little bit and get ramped up. There's just a lot of bills. And so I think our main, one thing that we're going to start doing is bringing together representatives from every single school district to become like a legislative advocate for the school boards. And Parkway I'll start attending the very first planning committee, and then we'll talk about rotating our board members so that we can all become a lot more knowledgeable about the legislation that's moving forward. We want to get ahead of these bills rather than trying to get behind them and trying to clean up or trying to act upon them after they're already become legal. Some of these have not yet been signed by the governor, but we are anticipating that they will be signed by the governor. So that is something that we all need to stay really on top of. The other thing that I attended on Monday, June 6th, was the Special School District Governing Council meeting. At that meeting, we approved the budget, and the special school district is working in a deficit budget this year. But their plan is to utilize their fund balance so that they will be able to meet their needs over the next several years. We also approved new partnership agreements, which our district will be receiving theirs in the coming months. We also approved their strategic plan and comprehensive school improvement plan, or CSIP. There was also some redistricting that has occurred. Because of the new redistricting that has occurred throughout the St. Louis County area, each area that represents a special school district on the special school district board has areas within St. Louis County that they cover. And because of now how the legislative representation has changed, these redistricting efforts have been affected by the special school district as well. However, given the redistricting, because the current board members that serve on the special school district board are residing in the areas that are still represented, there's no need to change anything on the special school district Board of Education with their directors at this time. So that all stays in place. But you will see, if you go to the special school district website, you can see the redistricting that now there's some changes that have been made to what school districts are in which areas that represent the special school district on the board. And that concludes my report.
Okay, thank you. I too would like to extend my welcome to you, Tiffany. We're so thrilled to have you on the board with us and look forward to you being a team member right alongside the rest of us. So, I also want to extend my congratulations to the graduates that we celebrated a couple of weeks ago. I got to attend Fern Ridge's graduation and Central's graduation, and like Matt said, it was great to be back. Great to be back in that setting, and a lot of happy kids that night. So that was great. Also got to attend the all administrator meeting last week and provide a welcome from them. It's always great to see that group of people together, collaborating with each other, and really taking lifting each other up to the next level. So that's always a nice group. And then lastly, I'd like to make some comments about our Deputy Superintendent, Dr. Chelsea Watson, because like Mike Roth, this is her last board meeting, and so I'll try and be brief, but it won't be easy. They say that imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, so my remarks may sound a little familiar to you. But first, if we're going to talk about Chelsea, we need to talk about our mission, which, as Chelsea would remind us, is at the center of everything we do. Of course, the mission of the Parkway School District is to ensure that all students are capable, curious, caring, and confident learners who understand and respond to the challenges of an ever-changing world. I don't think there's any person in Parkway that has been more of a champion of our mission than Chelsea. And perhaps there's no other individual in Parkway who welcomes new teachers like Chelsea does. She takes the time to get to know each one, works to build trusting and lasting relationships with them. Chelsea can tell you something unique about every single teacher in Parkway. Chelsea also delivers an exceptional amount of skill and professionalism in leading the many meetings and presentations she has in her role as an administrator. When I asked people to describe Chelsea's work here in Parkway, this is what they told me. Chelsea is passionate about public education and serving all students. She is an organizer, an excellent planner. She is mission-focused, the rock that so many people have leaned on over the years. Many people live the motto, "What would Chelsea do?" #WWCD. She honors the work of others and thanks others for a job well done. Understands the importance of having courageous conversations. Chelsea is passionate, driven, and an active listener. The one person you can always trust to do the right thing for Parkway students. Her thinking and actions are in complete alignment with Parkway's mission and vision. She shows integrity in her decisions and looks at the whole picture to make certain all sides are covered. Chelsea is self-aware and reflective, a caring heart and deep and genuine love for the Parkway School District, the heartbeat of Parkway. Of the several dozen adjectives Chelsea's coworkers used to describe her, some were mentioned consistently: caring, dedicated, kind, a servant leader, proactive, inspiring, amazing. One person summed up Chelsea's time with us very well. Parkway is a far better place for having Dr. Chelsea Watson be such an integral part of its history. While it truly takes a very large and dedicated team to run an organization the size of Parkway, there is little doubt that students would not be as prepared, staff would not be as organized, and this district would not be as wonderful a place as it is without the time, talent, and love that Chelsea has given the Parkway community over the last 30 years. On behalf of the Board of Education, we extend our very best wishes for a very well-deserved retirement. Next up, the calendar of meetings, which does not include Chelsea.
You forgot.
Oh, I did forget. I forgot
waiting,
Dr.
so-
Murray.
I was actually just pausing because it's hard to follow that up. We've made Chelsea cry a lot. I think,
I'm
Jeff,
sorry.
I think you're guilty of really
Sorry.
getting some tears here. But thanks, that was wonderful, Jeff, and well-deserved. And we've been able to celebrate a number of things with Chelsea of late, but we can't celebrate enough. So thank you. And like everybody else, Tiffany, we'd like to welcome you as our leadership group. I think we're all very, very excited and look forward to working with you as well. A lot of things that you've mentioned, I'll just say graduations are great. I echo that. I had the chance to be at all of them. and it was great to be back at Family Arena. I also had a chance last week to participate and say a few words at the adult education ceremony at Central Middle. That's a wonderful evening. These are a number of people who are graduating with various to high school equivalency. We had actually a woman, 62 years old, getting her high school equivalency, and then a number of individuals who have gone through our English language learning program for adults. And so a number of people recognize a lot of family, a lot of celebrations for adult learning in Parkway. Also want to say summer school is off and running, and I think our team was all out and about on Monday morning. And of course, we started a little bit with the mass, and then pulled the mass off. And even with mass that morning, I think we all observed that we didn't have students were compliant, and people were happy to be there, and people were getting organized. And I hear summer school is going very, very well. She's not here tonight, but Jennifer Stanfill deserves a lot of credit for really spending the time to organize summer school. And this year, with some construction and not being able to use all sites because of some construction, did a great job, and certainly have our assistant principals running a lot of the administrative work. I do want to just comment on safety. We could spend a lot of time talking about safety, and I'm sure we will be. But this summer, we have a lot of work going on from the 2018 bond in terms of finishing our vestibule work. If you drive around the district, you see early childhood, South High School, Central High School, Fern Ridge, Northeast Middle School, Green Trails. And I'm missing one, I think, right? Is there another elementary school? Green Trails? Ross, River Bend. River Bend is postponed for a while, right? Northeast Meadow, McKelvey? Okay, well, anyway, yeah, I think we're hitting. I think we had a little more work in the future because of delayed work at River Bend and North High School. But and then mentioning the 4E training, there will be 4E training again this summer, and certainly Paul, as our chief, emergency management officer, has been working with and continually works with getting the year started next year. We'll have some meetings this summer with SROs and really preparing for the year. Certainly, we're getting, people that are asking a lot of questions and wanting to know how we're doing security, I would say. And I was at a superintendent meeting today, which was a topic like it was, I think, when the board members got together. I think, again, it's a high concern, but I assure you that we will continue to do our best in Parkway to really make safety, obviously, a very, very high priority as we move forward. I want to say that Debbie covered this real well, but waiting for the governor to say what he's going to do on legislation. The concern is on some things like the reading bill, since Mrs. Hopper mentioned that, the governor will sign it. There'll be a long period of time while the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education will have to write the rules. So we're suspecting that reading bill will not go into effect, at least not at the beginning of the year, and likely not to the fall of 23. Because while the legislator passes bills, they don't get into the weeds and do all the procedures and process. So Desi will have to do some of that. I believe, and then I just want to say on July 1st, we have, and Jeff will participate in this, we'll kick off our new administrative work. I think we have 28 new leaders, administrators that will be part of our class, and a large number. You've met a lot of our leaders the last couple board meetings, and certainly, even though she is new, Tiffany's going to be leading, Holman Best is going to be leading a lot of that work along with a group of principals and other administrators who are participating. So we're excited and a lot of folks to say that we're starting, a lot of individuals have already been, doing transition work, but we'll really spend a lot of time in July and August getting our administrators. So we don't just do it one day. There's a whole series of opportunities. I think, Paul, you're going to do some media training again, and there's a lot of effort to really make sure when the school year starts, our administrators, and then the work continues throughout the school year with our induction activities. So,
Great.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Now you can keep going.
Now I will keep going. The next regular board meeting will take place without Chelsea on Wednesday, August 10th, beginning at 7 p.m. at the Parkway Welcome Center. You're invited to just tune in remotely if you're really bored. Next up, we have a fairly healthy consent agenda that we've all had an opportunity to review. So may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented in the June 15th, 2022 board materials.
So move.
Second.
Is there anything to be pulled to action or closed? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 6-0. Next up, we have several action items, the first of which is the approval of our comprehensive assessment plan. So I will call on Carter Snow to give us a little brief recap.
Good evening.
Good evening.
President Todd, Vice President Hopper, members of the board, Dr. Marty, Mrs. Stover. Tonight it is my pleasure to present the 2022-23 school year comprehensive assessment plan for your consideration. This plan aims to ensure a balanced assessment system that gives educators, including teachers, administrators, interventionists, the information they need to support student learning. Data from these assessments are used to measure and improve student growth towards mastery of learning standards, curriculum attainment, and achievement of Parkway's strategic plan. Next year's plan contains changes that reflect the continued need for online delivery of assessments and the need to identify and address continued learning gaps created by the pandemic. I'm going to highlight a few changes from previous year's plans. There's not many, but there are a few. And so one of those changes is the addition of the first grade math screening. So at the beginning of first grade, teachers, including math specialists, will screen students for essential math skills as an early indicator of math risk. This allows schools to identify students who may need additional support and provide early intervention working closely with their math specialists, they feel strongly that if they can identify these skills early, they have the tools and know how to intervene in collaboration with teachers to make sure that all students are on track by the end of first grade. We're also adding a pre-ACT for our high school sophomores. This is a small change, so sophomore students will provide a pre-ACT on April 18th, the same day we give the ACT to all of our juniors. It gives them the ACT test experience and feedback on their mastery of ACT tested subjects like English, math, reading, and science. This is a different assessment than we've previously given in the practice ACT. That form that we've been using for a number of years is discontinued, so it's an opportunity for us to make a small change and provide a ACT product, which is the pre-ACT. So it's shown to have a strong predictor of ACT success, but also gives students the experience of what that test is like, the timing that they'll need to be successful on it, the pacing of that, and remembering how to fill in a Scantron, which is kind of a skill that is somewhat obsolete at this point, but students still do on the ACT. And then finally, there's also a few DESE required assessments that we're continuing to monitor very closely, and one of those is the kindergarten entry assessments. We're going to continue a pilot of some of those skills. It really does screen students for essential kindergarten developmental skills. It'll be something we report out in October to the state. Those skills are things like well-being and motor skills, social-emotional skills, cognition and general knowledge, approaches towards learning, some of those things that we currently do in our kindergarten classrooms. So that's what we're trying to really assess. What assessments are we, screening materials are we currently giving students that meet these essential early learning standards, and what are we missing, what do we need to include? So that's going to be a part of next year as we start to really unpack and then discover what we have and what we might need to add. In addition, there is a second grade literacy and numeracy assessment that is likely to be required by MSIP 6, our next iteration of the Missouri School Improvement Plan. And so we're kind of waiting for some guidance from the state as they identify exactly what that assessment will be. The hope is that will start to be implemented in the spring, but we're paying very close attention to what that will look like as guidance comes out from the state. So with that, those are the few changes we have for this upcoming year. Are there any questions you have for me about the comprehensive assessment plan?
I'll just ask, other than the one you just mentioned, are there any other things that we kind of foresee coming out of MSIP 6 that we can be proactive in getting ready for?
Yes, but not necessarily in changes in assessment design or the assessments we give, but in terms of how we use those scores to indicate both district and school progress. There will be some pretty significant changes there. Really looking closely at, and I mentioned this when we looked at our kind of state of the state, our achievement report, which is looking closely at growth. And so that's something that we're really focused on, is looking at not just achievement, but also growth. They'll be using existing state test scores to measure growth. They've been doing that, but in terms of the emphasis on growth is going to be increased than it was in MSIP 5. And so we're very curious about how our own system of assessment reflects growth. And we'll be looking very closely in the fall about how our district benchmark assessments can provide information on student growth, not just achievement, to try to better understand that both internally and externally for MSIP 6.
Since you brought that up, Mr. Todd, we just got a letter on Monday, which I shared with Kevin Becker. He's not here tonight, but we have been told that we're one of, I don't know, several districts, like maybe 40, 50 in the state, that DESE has identified that they want to work with starting this fall on the changes that are going to lead to MSIP 6. And we think it's good because we'll learn a lot in terms of what some of the changes will be, and then somebody from DESE will be working closely with probably Carter and working with Kevin Beckner. I don't know if you get any sense of what other things may happen out of that, but I think it's probably good. Dr. Becker and I believe it's good news.
Yeah, I've heard from other district partners that that is going to be something that we'll be looking at, and I think working with the state is always better than trying to be proactive and understand what the changes mean and how to implement these new changes, we certainly appreciate their partnership. And so, yeah, we'll look forward to engaging that work with the DESE officials and understand all of the implementations of MSIP 6 as we really dig in and unpack each of those new standards. Yeah.
A couple of the questions that I had, it seemed like in reading through this that it looks like dyslexia screening stops after grade 3. Is that accurate, or do you is there continued
It is
screening
continued.
for that?
It is continued all the way through 12th grade. The tools do change, and identifying those foundational pieces of reading later on in a student's educational path can be more difficult as students start to obviously start to compensate for maybe some of those dyslexia needs. And so we use additional tools like the SRI, as well as running records beyond 3rd grade for students, and certainly from a state required perspective. In kindergarten, we do give 2 times a year, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade 3 times a year. But then 4th grade and beyond, we continue to kind of monitor for some of those skills that might be popping up as indications of risk towards dyslexia.
Because I also think about students who might be transferring into Parkway, and whether or not they had those same types of assessments or not, and then they enter into our district and may be struggling, and if we're not capturing that or assessing it, are we doing okay with that, or could we be doing better with that?
Absolutely. I think that's on the radar of every educator and principal. Of when we have new students, we're collecting as much information early on as we can to really get a full picture of where that student, their educational experience they're bringing to us, strengths and challenges might be presented. And so I do know that many of our tools are focused in the fall. That's not always when students come to us. Sometimes they come to us in May, as you may know. But understanding, what that might look like, not just in terms of risk of dyslexia, but any educational area we might need to focus. Yeah.
The other question I had is under assessment results and dissemination of data. There was a lot of conversation in the document about the data disseminating within the building and principals talking to teachers, et cetera. But I began wondering, and I didn't see it addressed in the written document, is there cross-building between buildings, looking at data to show that maybe there is a very high-performing school that others could learn from, and what might that be? And is that something that is done within our district at all?
Yeah, absolutely. And so one of the things we've been very focused on, and I've been very focused on, is increasing the data access and use within Parkway. And so making sure that every piece of data that we have access to can be shared within a comprehensive data ecosystem. And so when we look at that as Tableau. And so certainly all Parkway educators, administrators, instructional coaches have access to Tableau. And that's one of those things where we can have not just within a building quick and easy access to visual representations of student learning, but also when we have our every Monday we have instructional coaches from all of our elementary schools in the same space. And we do things which we've started this year, which is called benchmark review. And so at the end of ELA benchmark windows and math benchmark windows, we have the opportunity to sit down and look across all schools and as a district, what are our strengths in terms of the curriculum? Where do we need to focus? Do we have certain student groups that are outperforming or underperforming different student groups? And then do we have schools, like you said, that are just knocking the cover off the ball and maybe we can learn from? And so those conversations kind of do happen in a structured way at the end of each kind of benchmark assessment, which is 3 times a year. But it certainly also happened within principals meetings and other meetings where we have opportunities to discuss district data.
And my last question has to do with test security. There was a lot of information on how to move materials and keeping all the paper documents secure, et cetera.
Yes.
But what about the computer security and the safety and security of that? Is there any information technology security that we need to be worried about, or is that being looked at or managed?
Yeah, a lot of the test security information relates to state assessments, which is state assessments we use for accountability and consumes most of May. In fact, we gave our map testing in this space with the walls up, and it totally transformed the space. And so When it comes to that test security, we're looking both online and in paper, ensuring that basically that we're not breaking the rules that DESE has put down and the board guidelines that you have set forth. And so it's been very important that we do treat those tests securely. Obviously, they're used for accountability purposes. And so the paper materials is all handled by my office, and we have a check-in, check-out procedures. The online test security is actually, testing in online space is a bit easier when it comes to test security. Of course, we do have rules and regulations around what students can have on their Chromebooks, where we've had instances in the past where students write little helpful notes on their Chromebooks and Post-it notes. But maybe also that quadratic formula was still on there. And so we treat everything that we do around accountability testing as secure materials, and so making sure they don't have access to inappropriate things. A lot of classrooms use dividers even between Chromebooks, and so just ensuring that students have a nice productive space for them to test in, and of course that there's no cheating happening. But when it comes to online, the lack of paper materials actually makes test security a bit easier in terms of managing and making sure those things are secure. We do certainly, when we think about testing online, and I know Jason Rooks is always on top of this, but just making sure that the information we're sharing with these companies is also secure as students take tests online and that data becomes available to third parties. That, of course, the state is always on top of that, as well as Jason, in terms of making sure that any assessments we give internally, we have high degrees of security around that data.
Thank you.
Carter, I just have a question about, you talked about the new ACT, the sophomore year, right? You mentioned.
Sophomore year, yeah.
I know you follow this probably more closely than I do, although I send you a lot of things about ACT. There's kind of been another, for a while ACT was kind of being thought to be not as vital, but there's kind of an uptick now about universities' use of ACT as entry. Am I correct?
Yeah, that
and
is.
we want to we want to ensure our graduates are prepared, as you mentioned. Am I correct?
We are, and so we're really paying close attention to that nationally as well within the state and locally. And so working with, of course, Aaron Schulte, our coordinator of counseling, but all of our principals this spring, met with them and really tried to look at what is our current reality and where might we be going with high stakes testing when it comes to college admittance. And so there are states like California that have, within their university system, moved to test blind. And so what that means is that they're not using SAT or ACT to make a determination on acceptance. Missouri's not there. We have schools within the Missouri system that are test optional, but they still use assessment scores to certainly make determinations about acceptance in addition to other information. And then importantly, scholarships and other competitive aspects of getting into college, it's still an important part. And so we looked at, we spend quite a few resources on administering the ACT to our juniors, both instructionally and financially. And is that still worth it? Is that still something we want to continue to do for all of our juniors? And we made the determination that locally and at the state and even nationally, that is something that's a worthwhile experience for them, that provides them opportunities that could, even if their pathway is not college, that's still going to be a good experience for them. And so that's where we are now, but we're paying very close attention to where we go. Like Dr. Marty said, obviously during the pandemic, getting into a testing center was difficult, right? And we had a lot of colleges and universities that said, we can't, we don't want to hold the ability to get into a testing center against a student who might want to apply to this university. And so that has started to drop. We have more opportunities for students to test, and I think schools in Missouri, where the majority of our students go, is being required again as a part of admittance.
Anyone have any further questions? Okay. Thank you very much, Carter.
Thank you.
So may I have a motion and a second that the Board of Education approve the 2022-2023 Comprehensive Assessment Plan as presented in the June 15th, 2022 board meeting materials?
So move.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Hopper?
Yes.
Ms. Mapp Franklin?
Yes.
Mr. Reedy?
Yes.
Mr. Schindler?
Yes.
Mr. Spector?
Yes.
Mr. Todd?
Yes, motion carries 6-0. Next up, we'd like to welcome Patty Bedborough back to the podium to talk about the 2022 bond issue project list.
Good evening again, everyone. So, as you know, the facilities department, along with our administrators, have been gathering our project list for a potential bond issue for this upcoming fall. Last month, we did a detailed presentation, both Mr. Tandy and myself, going through our survey results, our feedback from all of our stakeholders, along with our final project list, as we have presented here in summary form. We've also presented at least two, I believe, three board workshops as well, going into in-depth analysis on the different projects that would be included on the bond issue. We've listened to feedback, changed those priorities in the project list based on the feedback, and what we have for you this evening is a potential project list for your review and adoption. Do you have any questions?
Do we? We've heard it a time or two thus far.
I'll just say, I'm really thankful that going back to our first board workshop too with this process, that there were adjustments, that the community was listened to, and we took lots of input on this process, which I think is very important. So I'm very hopeful that things go well after our vote today.
Any other comments or questions? Okay. May I have a motion and a second that the Board of Education approve the list of projects as presented in the board materials for the November 2022 bond issue ballot measure?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Hopper?
Yes.
Ms. Mapp Franklin?
Yes.
Mr. Reedy?
Yes.
Mr. Schindler?
Yes.
Mr. Spector?
Yes.
Mr. Todd?
Yes, motion carries 6-0. You have a bond issue.
Thank you so very much. We have been working on the preliminary language for the ballot, and we will have that prepared and ready for you at the August board meeting.
Great, thank you.
We almost had it ready for tonight,
All right,
but we decided to hold.
we'll take a little break. So you don't get to go anywhere.
Nope, I'm here as a little bit of a fixture. Next up, we have the budget for the 2022-2023 school year. Last month, we did do a comprehensive report showing you not only our projected revenues and our expenditures for the upcoming year, we also did some future forecasts, and then, of course, our fund balance forecasts as well. In the meantime, we have produced a budget book for your review. I believe it's a little bit over 100 pages long that gives not only the revenues but the expenditures and multiple different ways by fund, by function, by object, etc., both history and then future years as well. Do you have any questions on either the presentation from last month or the budget book that you have had for review?
The one question that I have is, where in the budget does the disproportionate funds from special school district hit?
They don't, because we do not spend those. SSD actually spends those and I guess shares them, pays for the professional development that is utilized with that. So they pay directly for those services.
Okay, so that does not enter into our budget.
Mm-mm.
They just have that as part of their budget allocated to our district and then pays for the services that Parkway uses that money for.
If it is, so for instance, if it happens to be something that we pay for, the reimbursement for that would then be paid and credited back to that same function and object code then too.
Okay.
But it's my belief, because nothing has gone through our purchasing process either, that it is all an expenditure on SSD that they pay directly to the vendors.
Okay, but Parkway has to submit something so that they know to pay that, right?
I am unfamiliar with that. That is definitely a Dr. Matheson
I was just saying that, yeah, Dr.
question.
Matheson works
Okay.
with the administrators at SST. Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Okay.
But I know he does all the planning along with Amy in order to get that budget, all aligned and such too.
Okay.
And the two superintendents meet for a budget meeting too to discuss not only the allocation of staff, but also the disproportionate share funding as well.
I would just like to say that, I'll just hold this up, so people aware, the more than 100 pages you said, right?
135.
135. I just want to say that, I mean, this is a wonderful read, perhaps not in one sitting, but it certainly does portray the district's effort to make sure that we're mission-driven and that we budget according to what our priorities are. Patty does a wonderful job, I think, of really being aware and listening, certainly, as we think about changes. We are really, at this point, in a really strong financial shape, and it was good to hear when we had the interviews of the potential board members here, Tiffany and others. We're very aware that our situation is good. Our fund balance, our debt services, obviously now leading into a bond, but this doesn't just happen. So I want to brag on Patty and her department and the work that she does, and also the cooperation she gets from other administrators in putting this together. We're so spoiled in Parkway. I'm spoiled each year because it happens and we kind of just take it for granted. But this is a lot of work, a lot of detail, and certainly a lot of things go into preparing the budget and then certainly implementing it and being a watchdog over our expenditures and our revenues. Legislatively, we watch very closely what's happened. We're very, very pleased what's happening with transportation, at least on a one-year basis. But I'll just say, I was at a meeting today, and what we also have to be aware of what's happening in the bigger world right now. Okay, inflation a bit out of control, right? And what could be on the backside of that. And today I got a lecture from a fellow superintendent that while things are really looking good now, we ought to be planning. And Patty knows this. Patty's forecasting the future. Down the road, 25, 26, 26, 27. If you think about what happens in sometime on the backside of inflation is recession, and what does that mean for our revenue? So anyway, we're in good shape now, but Patty is already saying we've got to be careful. It's just, whether it's the legislation or whatever, we have to be very careful about our future and guarding our future.
Especially the amount of office space that we have in our district. That's our largest source of revenue is all of our property taxes. We know that our home values are still extremely, extremely competitive and stable and growing, but it's the commercial property that, we perhaps could go into that Great Recession again, and we know what happened in 2008, 2009, and 2010 with, a depletion in our assessed valuation. So certainly that is something that we are watching very careful on. But we also know on the other side of commercial property, warehousing property is filled up. So we even have new property that's being constructed just on the edge of our district in Maryland Heights. Of course, it is under abatement with a full Chapter 100 full abatement. But we know that there's still building and construction going on. So that is a positive sign as well.
And Patty, was there, because this was a long document, and I did read it, but not word for word probably. But is there accommodations in this budget to buy new buses? I know we changed our fleet out and, we're replacing things. Was that in this budget at all?
Absolutely.
And
So
how many?
usually it's 10 to 14 buses each year that we budget for. I will let you know that we are exploring the possibility with the grants for looking at electric buses as well. Because of our poverty level, we may not qualify for a large amount of buses with that grant, but we are beginning to explore that as well.
Well, thank you for that. I guess the reason why I'm also asking is there a possibility that as that fleet gets changed out, that we could purchase buses that have air conditioning? Because I know our buses do not have it, and I know that we've had the conversation that it's difficult or it's very expensive to retrofit a bus with air conditioning, but might there be an opportunity as this fleet is getting changed out and new buses purchased, that they could be purchased with air conditioning in them already?
So part of the conversation that goes along with air conditioning on a bus is that is a very large space, and air conditioning in that space is extremely difficult. So you mentioned the retrofitting, which, there's not multiple vents, in the bus. Certainly we can research it to see if any improvements in technology or development have happened. But I know initial feedback when we looked into this a few years ago was that it's inconsistent in cooling the actual bus, that you'll have the spot where the actual, air vents are that may be cool, but then there are spaces on the bus that still remain hot because the airflow has no way of circulating on the bus effectively. And our students are on the bus. Most of our resident students are on the bus for a shorter distance on average. Certainly our students that reside in the city of St. Louis do have a much longer bus ride. So those would certainly be ones that, we would potentially want to do that ask on as well.
Mm-hmm.
But certainly we can explore if advances in technology and development have happened on that, and report out on that.
I would appreciate that, just so we can have an idea that, I think we owe it to our bus drivers, especially in heat like we're experiencing right now, if there's opportunity to have some buses, that we can operate that way, for those who would benefit would be helpful.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think about long field trips, athletic events, so, which are a little bit further distance than going to school or back and forth every day, which I appreciate that remark, but I think it would just be nice to know, where is it, where would it sit, if we could do it.
Yeah, we can do further research into advancements in that. They've come a long way with cars, like even, a car when I was growing up, you didn't have the vents for the back seat. Now, most cars have the vents for the back seat, so, your back seat riders have those vents, so perhaps there's a bit more enhancements on school buses as well.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll look at that.
Okay, thank you.
And we'll provide, information back to you on that as well.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I know Mr. Seltzer's sorry he couldn't be here tonight to comment on the fund balance. I know.
The fun.
So may I have a motion and a second that the Board of Education approve the 2022-2023 expenditure budget as presented by the administration in the amount of $301,533,732, with $88,619,040 to be expended from the general fund, $163,915,710 from the special revenue fund, $26,558,086 from the capital projects fund, and $22,440,896 from the debt service fund.
So move.
Second.
Roll call, please, Nikki.
Mrs. Hopper,
Yes.
Ms. Mapp Franklin,
Yes.
Mr. Reedy,
Yes.
Mr. Schindler,
Yes.
Mr. Spector,
Yes.
Mr. Todd.
Yes, motion carries 6-0.
Thank you very much.
You got a budget. Okay. And you're still here. Next up, we have the Transportation Task Force recommendations, and I bet you will be joined by Will Rosa.
I am going to be joined by Will Rosa, our Director of Transportation, that specifically came back from vacation so he could be here today with us.
I heard that. Thank you.
So nobody's more happier than myself that he is here to join me this evening. So tonight, our job is to give you an overview of truly what we've been doing besides budget for the last few months. We have put together a transportation task force in order to obtain feedback and some additional ideas on the nationwide bus driver shortage that we are certainly a part of. So tonight we will outline the problem, We will discuss the recommendations from the Transportation Task Force. We're going to discuss the thought exchange feedback that we received that was submitted and responded to by both staff and parents. We also took the opportunity to have some focus groups with our bus drivers. We're going to share their feedback, and then we're going to move forward with our recommendations and our changes for the transportation guidelines. So first, just a general overview of our task force. We had 9 parents that participated, 3 principals, and 5 district administrators. Just to overview our process, we formally met 3 times. We presented the problem in detail. We presented potential solutions. We worked with them to gain feedback and highlight some additional solutions. We surveyed our parents, our staff, with potential solutions via the thought exchange process. As mentioned, we had the focus groups with the drivers. With all that feedback, we refined our recommendations based on the feedback, and we want to now implement the recommendations. First, a little bit of our history. So pre-pandemic, we, on a daily basis, transported close to 12,000 students a day. So pre-pandemic, 11,397 students rode our buses. The orange bar that you see there, that is our number of students that ride our buses that are less than 1 mile. As you can see, last year, not only did we encourage our parents to drive, but we also had pandemic concerns with transmission, et cetera, on the buses, so we only had 4,433 students that rode our buses this year. Certainly our ridership has increased to almost 9,000 students. So with the planning for next year, we do anticipate that riders will gradually come back to the buses as well. What are our real changes? What are our needs for bus drivers? This graph is a great indication of where we are. As you can see over time that, there's been years that we have been short drivers, but in forecasting for this upcoming year, we believe that we will be short about 14 drivers. So that is not only our drivers that are currently driving routes, but also our spare drivers. Truly what's happened this past year is we have had no spare drivers. So on a daily basis, we have office staff and our mechanics that are driving our routes and getting our students safely to school and safely home. Unfortunately, that is not a sustainable model because, of course, our office workers aren't able to complete all their duties and our mechanics aren't able to complete all their duties as well. And quite honestly, they're just worn out. There's also times where we are so short that a bus driver may, I'll say, pick up their regular route for, I'll use Barrett's as an example, drop off the students, and then have to go out and run another route to pick up additional students for Barrett's. What happens then is then those students arrive late to school. So that's not a good learning environment for our students either. So that's why we've come forward with this. We know that it's going to take multiple solutions, not just one solution, in order to make this work for the district. So to begin with, want to go through some of the summary of the thought exchange. So not only showing the responses to the potential solutions, and one of the solutions that went out to them was potentially creating a 4th tier, meaning that instead of just have 3 tiers, high school, middle school, elementary, that we compress the routes and have, need for less drivers. We would then create a 4th tier that perhaps started later and ended later. So you'll see some of the feedback from our parents and our staff on that situation among some of the other recommendations that we will be suggesting we move forward with. We did have really good participation for the survey, so 2,174 responses. 1,792 of them were from our parents, and 24%, or 528, were from our teachers or staff members. With that, we had, how does your child currently ride the bus? So 59% of the respondents, their children currently rides the bus. And then what's the breakdown by grade level? So our highest number of respondents were from elementary school, so 56%, middle school 30%, high school 23%, and 16 not applicable, so no students riding. To summarize some of the thought exchange responses, when asked, should there be an increase in pay, you can see by the blue line there that there was overwhelming support to increase pay. And as you know, we have brought that forward for your decision, and you have thankfully made that decision to increase their pay. The drivers are extremely appreciative of that. You can see that their feedback on adjusting the tiers, the gray is against, so that was very strong. Don't add a fourth tier. When we talk about extending the walk zone, while it's not overwhelming support, there is support for that. And also decreasing the number of bus stops also had support. So almost a third of the support of the increasing in pay. And then that last one says number of students on the buses. As you can see, that was a heavy vote against doing so. Some of their comments that they shared, I don't want to read the slides word for word, but I'll just point out a few. And these are items that in the summary come out with high stars, or the most liked theme, if you will. So Parkway may have competitive pay compared to bus drivers in other districts, but it's not a competitive salary in this job market. In addition to raising compensation for drivers, could we find ways that these drivers to have full schedules, jobs in buildings or the district? So thoughts that had lack of support, so changing the start times has a huge impact on family planning. Please save as a last resort. Moving schools to a later start and end time will result in quality teachers leaving the district to seek jobs outside of education or to other districts. When we look at tiers, here's some support questions. The best solution is to increase driver pay. Making the fourth tier would only be desirable if it was a mid-time tier or later than 4 o'clock, or no later than 4 o'clock, sorry. High school should start later. It leads to better academic outcomes and fewer car accidents. Change the high schools to later start times. I like the idea of consolidating the bus stops. I hate the idea of adding the fourth tier. Combine the bus stops, got a 4.3. Increase the walking distance for high school and middle school students. I think it is important to increase the biking distance for the middle school and high school students before making any other changes. When we look at expanding the walk zones, kind of the lack of support, the sidewalk situation, lack thereof at Parkway Central High and Parkway Central Middle School needs to be addressed for kids, and will if they're expected to walk. Please add sidewalks around the middle and high schools if you increase the walking distance. I think that increasing the walk zone is one great option and great for the environment. I think making the walk zone 1 mile is a great start to reduce the number of students needing to ride the bus. Middle school and high school students are too big to share their seat. One concern with increasing the number of students on the bus is the greater potential for misbehavior. We see that theme also in our feedback for the bus drivers. When we look at increasing the number of students of buses and the support, I'm comfortable with more students being on the bus or limiting the riders to those outside 1 mile, no later start times. Also looking at competitive salary, better schedule, and great benefits will retain good drivers. So those are some of our feedback. Certainly we took that feedback and adjusted some of our recommendations based on that. We also engaged our principals and our secretaries to reach out to all of our students that were not currently riding the bus but were within our zone. We reached out and we obtained information back that over 1,000 additional riders would be on buses next year or intend to be on the buses for next year. 587 of those are kindergartners. So that leaves an influx of about 500 students. So that's preliminary results. We are planning to go out with a more detailed survey in the next few weeks to obtain real numbers for the intention to ride next year. Here's some of the feedback from our drivers. First and foremost, they love Parkway and they love our students. They love our benefits offered, our health, our dental, our retirement. They did ask that we increase the driver pay. They suggested signing bonuses, retention bonuses. Perhaps we could look at more days paid off for spring break and winter break, increasing the guaranteed hours, allowing us to have personal days paid out on a non-work day, improve student behavior, and increase perhaps the consequences. They suggested hiring a recruiting firm, maintaining student seating as it is, perhaps some attendance incentives and opportunities to earn extra money. So based on all that feedback, we went back to the task force. We reviewed the feedback, and with that, we have made these recommendations. So certainly to increase the salary scale and reduce the number of steps. We looked at the opportunity to have additional paid days off, et cetera. But we decided that putting as much money as we could into the scale, meaning as they work, the higher that hourly rate made more sense than to add more paid time off for them. Our recommendation is to have a 1 mile walk distance for elementary school students. So no bus would be provided within 1 mile neighborhood walk zones. So where students could safely walk to school, where there's sidewalks, there's not busy streets, that goes all within our guidelines. So we do have a list of schools that this would not apply to. We want to increase our distance from home to the bus stop for all tiers. So in essence, lessening the number of stops that the bus will need to take. So in cases where we would have to do 2 tiers within one, meaning we're short drivers, we need to then do that second pickup for the Barrett students because we're short. This would then, having less stops to make, would be able to add efficiency for our drivers to hopefully deliver our students to the school in a more timely manner. Schools need to prepare to receive students potentially early and hold students at the end of the day, potentially looking like a 20-minute window. Currently, that's a perhaps 10-minute window. Is that correct? So working with our principals in order to do that. And of course, that would not be on a daily basis. We hope that would only be on certain circumstances where we have no subs. Additional resources for recruitment, aggressive communication plan for driver recruitment, and also encouraging parents to drive students if they're able to, and of course, completing the survey. And it's going to be an opt-in survey, letting us know that they intend to drive or to ride or to not. And then that survey should be going out within the next week or two. From the data from the survey, then Will and his team will then be creating all new routes for our students. So we are not asking any of the current schools to change tiers at this time. So everybody's going to remain on tier 1 if you're high school, or the elementary's on tier 1. The same thing, tier 2 is not going to change with our middle schools, and then Green Trails in Hannah, that's currently on Tier 2, and then our Tier 3 would remain the same as well. In addition to that, we would recommend that schools start support groups, so walker support groups within the neighborhood. Perhaps fifth graders could help partner up and be buddies with kindergartner or first graders. Perhaps looking at outsourcing our alternative transportation, so those that are smaller routes, et cetera, that perhaps if we're not able to fill those routes, looking at the potential of outsourcing those, and then put additional students on buses, not really filling the buses to 3 per seat, but truly when we're creating the routes, imposing the maximum bus capacity where feasible, meaning right now I believe on a 55 passenger bus, we have 2 per seat and then 11 extra, is that correct? So then that would be on a 55 passenger bus, we'd have 65. 65, we'd have 55. There you go. All right, so what we've already done then is our salary scale enhancements. So where we had starter pay at $16.15 an hour and 16 steps to get to $24 an hour, we have already enhanced the salary scale to begin at $17.75 and within a 10-step or a 10-year go to $24.95 as that high pay. This salary scale, what made it affordable was that we blended the positions that are, some of the positions that are no longer filled, we blended those salaries into that total salary base in order to afford essentially the increase for the salary. We've already started some pretty aggressive marketing campaign for our bus drivers. Our communications department has done a phenomenal job, not only with Facebook posting, with parent newsletters, community mailings and such, but we also have several of our banners that are located throughout the district that are highlighting our need for bus drivers and of course our paid benefits that come along with that as well. So tonight, what we wanted to review with you, and I know that you had a board letter that detailed all the changes. Our transportation policy is EEA.BP, and we're not proposing a change to the policy. It remains intact. What we are suggesting are the changes to what's called our guidelines or administrative procedures. So there's 2 points specifically in the administrative procedures related to the 1 mile walk zone that we are proposing are changed. So item number 4, all pupils can be expected to walk up to 1 mile to a bus stop. However, this should not be construed to mean that pupils must walk 1 mile to a stop. Discretion will be given to the safety conditions of a pedestrian route, age of children, and the safety conditions at that potential stop. The other factor that would be changed is number 9, and this takes into consideration all of our safety measures that we look at while addressing that 1 mile walk zone. So all pupils living less than 1 mile will be considered eligible for bus transportation if some or all of the following conditions exist. So if these don't exist, then they would not be eligible for transportation. So the pedestrian route to school for pupils has a posted speed limit of 30 miles per hour or more unless sidewalks exist. There's an absence of sidewalks or walking area on the pedestrian route. There is no traffic control device on the pedestrian route to assist the crossing roads. And the pedestrian route contains hazardous conditions such as sharp curves, steep hills, impaired visibility, risk that pupils cannot be alleviated or observing general pedestrian safety rules. So with this, there are a group of elementary schools then that would not be eligible for the 1 mile neighborhood walk zone. Those would include, and I left that list, I think on my other handout, but that would include Bell Reeve, Carmen Trails, Mason Ridge, McKelvey Primary, and what's the last one? Piermont. Oh, and Piermont. We do have one area for Oak Brook that it can access a walkway to Redbud Plantation Drive. So those students would not be picked up, but anybody else along Big Bend would be bused. I do want to also add that we have been working with not only the city of Manchester, the mayor, and of course Megan Heather, to look at the possibility of sidewalks along Hannah Road. So they have a federal grant for sidewalks. They had a plan for 2025 for the sidewalks to be implemented. We are working with them to see if they can move that timeline up. Potentially, the earliest would be the summer of 2024. So they are looking into that. And then just by chance, tomorrow we have a meeting with the city of Chesterfield to look into the possibility of sidewalks along North Woods Mill Road. So that would help with the accessibility for both Central Middle and Central High School as well. So moving forward, of course, we would be developing communication plan as you know. I mean, our communication department has done a phenomenal job with targeting some communications already. We're also going to be developing the survey, which it's developed. It would be ready to deploy once we advance the students in our system, so then technology can grab that and share that out, and then also have a communication plan that surrounds the survey that goes out as well. Our timeline, of course, meeting with you, explaining all of our recommendations tonight, implementing as soon as possible, and then we did promise that we would continue to follow up with the Transportation Task Force as well. So with that, do you have any questions? That was a lot of information.
I've got a question. Obviously, I mean, just thinking about it, we're gonna have more people probably taking their kids to school and picking them up and dropping off. What thought is there into enhancing that? I know it was kind of briefly put on there about the 20 minutes extra, but maybe having multiple drop-off areas, as a parent whose family drops off with a car, it can be a pretty long process, and not just walkers potentially becoming car riders, but potentially people who don't want to walk a potential mile to their bus stop could become car riders. Well, what thought is going into that with regards to pick up and drop off and ways to make that more efficient?
So we have begun conversations with principals on that. Some of our principals have very elaborate procedures and processes for tracking who is in the lineup and the order of the students and stuff. So really part of that will be working with our principals to see what are some potential solutions they can come up with as well. Our parking lots, some of them have room for a lot of cars on their parking lots, and then we have others like Ross that has a very tiny area for pickup and drop off. So part of our problem is we do have limited space on some of our parking lots as well.
We will continue that discussion with building principals about opening up earlier, so we can perhaps encourage people to drop off their students so they don't get in the way of buses. And but it's an issue, Jeffrey. It really is. It really is a concern about how much traffic we have with more and more people driving. We saw it this year.
We know it personally on Central Middle Campus.
Yeah.
Cars start lining up for pickup usually at least a half hour before, and they don't like to let us out. They think we're going to butt in line. So, they're kind of protective of their space. So, we definitely see that, and we're going to have to be creative.
A question that I have is, we're asking parents in June to make a decision about something that's going to happen in mid-August. What if the family's plans have to change? That we're committing now to saying, yes, we'll drive our child to school, but then something happens, we're just not able to do that. How can that family be accommodated, and can accommodations be made for them to switch to be a bus rider instead of a car driver?
Ultimate, yes.
Most
Good.
parents are gonna opt.
Go to Mike, please.
I think most parents would opt, we'd encourage them if they're not sure to opt yes. Don't, if they're not certain that they're gonna use the bus, they should opt in for yes. But, so let's say someone's really trying to help out and participate in what we're doing here, and they say no, and then they come back and they have a family change, we're gonna make an accommodation to help them get back on a bus. It happened last year. We did a survey last year, and I don't know the exact numbers, but there's a lot of folks that initially said no to a bus, and then once school started and we got moving along, they changed to yes. And if we had a room on a bus, or we could find a way to get them on the bus, we did it. So we do the same thing. We're not going to turn somebody away.
I mean, during the course of the year, we have new families move in, so I mean, it's
Right.
dynamic, so I mean, you're dealing with changes.
We have to leave a little
yeah.
bit of capacity
Yes,
on
yeah.
all the buses for families moving in, et cetera. Yeah.
The other concern I have, and I guess is just ongoing regardless of this particular situation or whether we're not even, is snow removal on the sidewalks. I know there was an incident around West High School a year or two ago where some people got hit by cars because they were trying to walk around big snow mounds from the plows, and the sidewalks are not cleared. And I see students walking to and from West Middle School, and I know we can't project. Well, we can to a degree, but I guess when you're having your conversations with our county individuals, whether it's Chesterfield, Manchester, or whomever, could that conversation come up as to who is responsible or how can we get help to help clear the sidewalks for these walkers?
Well, we just met with Manchester, and we brought that topic up about sidewalks just as an off topic, and they're not going to, like the city of Manchester, the mayor, they're not going to clean sidewalks. They don't have the manpower to. They're just trying to get the roads clean. So I don't know if Chesterfield would be any different, but that is a challenge. Weather is a challenge. It's a challenge now for kids that have to walk a half a mile. Truly when it's raining or the weather's been good, where it's cold, same thing.
And we can't force residents to, that's.
Yeah, you don't want,
yeah,
they don't want to clean their sidewalk, then if somebody falls, then they're almost more liable, I think, in that scenario. So, the weather's a challenge for sure. At a mile or a half a mile. There's no way.
So we may just see, on those occasions, we may just see some kids being driven to school more if they don't have the bus.
Yeah.
We see more cars now on rainy days. When it's raining, there's a lot more cars in all our schools. You can see it, so I think that happens. Or cold days. People don't want to wait at a bus stop when it's really cold, same thing.
Looking at your salary scale enhancements, I know Parkway bus drivers enjoy more benefits than some other districts that surround us. How is the new salary scale comparing with some of those districts?
Yeah, they're fantastic. So far the feedback from all of our drivers, we've been talking about it for a month or so, it's all been positive.
Good.
All of them, even at the top, they're all very positive. And at the starting pay, where we're really, just like someone said earlier, you could go to Starbucks or Target for $16. So we're really off on the bottom pay, and so now it's a lot more attractive for somebody. We've got some drivers training now, and I think the feedback's been very positive from everyone, and compared to other districts too.
Do we currently have bus drivers that have been here for 16 years?
Oh, yeah.
Bus drivers
Yeah,
have been here
30, yeah.
So I'm guessing their pay will be at that $24.95.
yeah.
So that's the max pay.
Yeah, well, they still even that, if they're at 24 now, they got a 4% roughly. They still got a pretty good jump, 95 cents. Up until the last couple of years, our top drivers were getting
guarantee went up from 5 hours to 5.5. So, which is our average hours, but where it would really help is if we were in a shutdown situation again, we would pay out that guarantee versus paying out the 5 hours per day. We would pay that out as the 5.5 hours per day.
I appreciate hearing the feedback about what our drivers are, what they consider this pay increase to be. But have we specifically looked at how these numbers compare against bus drivers driving in Pattonville, Rockwood, Lindbergh?
They're rather comparable. In fact, we do have some drivers that already have applied from other districts to move here.
Pattonville's close, we're close to Pattonville, we might be a little bit ahead of them. Rockwood's not really a comparison because they don't have health insurance, so they
Right.
have a higher hourly rate at their top end, but they don't have any health insurance. So we, we're looking for different drivers. Most of our drivers, for a lot of them, are semi-retired, they retired, and, they're looking for something to do with health insurance. And so just different type of drivers we're looking for.
Have we ever considered the option of offering a higher wage without benefits?
Yes, we did.
Okay.
And based on feedback from our legal counsel and our HR department, we decided not to pursue that. Because it could cause some injustices then with other work groups as well that have part-time and full-time. And because this class of employees in general are less than full-time, but we give them full-time benefits, we did not want to accidentally trip over any kind of laws or regulations, so.
Okay.
We looked at that.
I just want us, we went through this with the task force because it took us a while to get there. We're not in a financial situation. We're in a people situation here. And it's not just bus drivers. It's every entity. So I think we have to educate our public because I'm still I got a comment the other day, just pay people more. If we're paying people more, they're not showing up. I mean, we're in a situation, that's why I think we, as Patty said very early in her presentation, we have to look at multiple options here. It's not just about pay. And it took us probably the second session of our task force to get our parents in particular to say, it's not about money, it's about resources. And my team is hearing me say this more and more. We have to understand, big picture, that COVID accelerates something that's going to happen in this country eventually. It's happened in Europe. Our baby boomers, many of us at this table, me the oldest, we're aging and we're not having workforce behind us. And so it's not just about bus drivers. We don't have enough custodians. We don't have enough food service. We don't have enough mechanics. Try to take your car in these days and you'll wait a week or two. So we have to start educating our public, not only at this level, and we're going to see it in teachers. That's why we have a Grow Your Own program. So it's not about paying people more. It's about the fact that was the case, they'd be knocking your door down, Will, right? And we're fortunate to see that more people are taking advantage of it. What might happen is, again, an economy crisis may cause us to get more people back. Mm-hmm. But to what Patty said again earlier, we try to come up with things that are sustainable here because we don't suspect this is just going to go away. We'll be living with this, and so we want to have a plan that we can live, that we can bring forth, and suspect that we're going to be living with this, not just this school year, but in the future.
And I will say too, it wasn't something that just became, oh wow, we got to do this. I mean, we looked at the feedback, we wanted the feedback, we wanted to know people's opinion and such too, and even based on that feedback, it came back as, don't change the tiers because certainly that would allow us to have less bus drivers, but please, have us walk more. That would be, the less burden on us versus changing the time, our start and stop time of schools and such too. So we did look at all that feedback.
Going back to safety real quick, obviously with the expansion of the walk zone, I'm sure you're working with the municipalities to change signage and to the school zone more. I would think that would need to be increased and
We haven't done that yet.
Yeah, that's good.
Making sure, obviously, just from where I'm at, the crosswalks are almost gone. I mean, I know that's municipal and local, but just working with them to make sure we've got better signage and crosswalks are repainted or lights shining when it's, you know, school time, just to make sure that there's just a little bit, as we hope to see more walkers, just more safety.
Good point.
Yeah, that's a good point.
The one other question that I had is, I think early on in the presentation you said we're currently 14 bus drivers short, is that correct? Do you see this situation eliminating that bus driver shortage? Do you think that this is really gonna take care of it, or are we gonna continue to see, I mean, are we still gonna have 14, even doing all of this, are we still gonna be 14 bus drivers short?
We hope not. So what we don't know is how many new students we will be transporting. We have an idea that, you know, potentially that's 500 new students, but we don't know that for sure. So we'll have that data that we can go on. We have, like I said, a very robust communication plan and recruitment that's going on currently. So we do have some drivers in the process, et cetera. So, I mean, we're hopeful. We're hopeful that it's less than 14 that we're short by the time that school starts. You know, we're hoping that these changes with the survey, we're able to reduce at least a few tiers, you know, a few routes, I should say, not a few tiers in there. So we're hopeful the combination of hiring and then the reduction of the total number of routes would be helpful.
It's just, I think there's a lot of variables, because we've been at 11,000 riders for a long time, and then we dropped down to 87, almost 9,000. If that goes up 1,000, you know, we're looking, you know, we're gonna have to fill in some more routes, or route buses. We're doing the school changes this year with West Middle and Hannah, so we're doing some grandfathering. We're gonna have to cover some additional buses in there. Special school district, in the board report, route approval tonight, they're at 18 routes currently, and they've been as high as 27 2 years ago, and they could go up pretty quickly, and it doesn't take a lot of students on our special need buses. Our average ridership's probably 4 or 5. So if they go from 18 to 22, there could be 3 or 4 routes there, 3 or 4 more drivers. So there's a lot of variables, and there's some people that haven't decided on retiring yet. Our workforce is older, which is good and bad, and so I think we'll probably see a couple more people leave here before the year starts, 2 or 3 more. So there's just so many things that are going on, and changing the walk zone does help. It'll eliminate some buses, our need on the middle tier, and then it'll allow us to have high school. We don't have high school activities right now, a 3:30 bus at all the high schools. It's a big concern for them. So hopefully by doing this, it'll give us some capacity on our third tier to get some high school, or 3:30 buses back for our high schools. We didn't have them this year.
And are families gonna be committing for a whole year or semester by semester, you know, as things change? Or are you?
For riding the bus?
I think for planning purposes, you gotta think the year, don't you?
I think the whole year, but I know the surveys, you know, a lot of districts are doing the survey. That's not new, and we're not the only district doing it, and a lot of them did it last year and the year before. I mean, as we're moving forward, we're trying to get in sync with some parents. There's a lot of high school buses, I can guarantee you, that you can see them, they're half full, because we have to load a high school bus to 100 kids, because I have no idea who's riding or not riding, I have to build the route. So, just getting some of that data, at elementary and middle school, most of the, I don't know, it's a pretty high percentage of kids that actually ride the bus at middle and elementary, so we're eliminating a few there, but the high school will take big chunks out, where we can actually, you know, reduce some routes and make them more efficient. And then less, probably at middle school, and less than at elementary, there's more riders. So the survey is gonna help us pare down a couple of those routes, make them more efficient, so we're not, driving 30 kids, we should have 40 full in the bus. That's what we're trying to do, so we can consolidate.
And to be honest, I mean, we are going to survey, and if we don't get responses, we're not just gonna assume they're writers like we have in the past. We're gonna get a hold of people. Because in the past, we just, up to a point, we just said, okay, we'll assume they're writers, and then maybe they rode once all year, right, or not at all, and they were on our list. So we're trying to build a better efficiency that's why we wanna demand a survey, and so we'll have people call if they were not getting a response.
I just mentioned, because I know you brought it up, but I didn't get to answer it earlier. I just want to add, for an activity bus or for a field trip bus, it's probably not, there are other districts that have done that, it's probably not a bad idea, and it puts some storage for some of our field trips. But what Patty said was right, it's hard to get the, get
Ventilation.
the ventilation, because it's a big unit, it's put out a lot, for a 65 passenger bus in the back, takes up a lot of space. And so what ends up happening is the kids in the first 12 feet of the back of the bus are freezing cold, and then the middle of the bus doesn't quite get it. So then you have to get a unit in the front in the bulkhead, and so you need 2 of them, and they're expensive, and the fuel mileage is bad, they break a lot. And other districts have them, but they use them on athletic trips.
You're talking about coaches, aren't you? Almost like a coach bus? Are you?
Almost like, yeah, coach.
I mean, that's what it is, isn't it?
Well, no, you can build a school bus with under
Yeah,
storage
yeah.
for equipment and whatever, and then you can put double air conditioning on the front and back. But, it's not the most efficient. Our special need bus is a lot better.
I think we ought to, we've asked a lot of questions here. I really think we owe Will and his staff, and it's been a trying year, and I've never seen Will, upset. He's been a true trooper, and so have your folks, and it was really good. I was able to sit in and hear some of the focus group of the bus drivers. I mean, generally they're very appreciative of your leadership and the work you're doing. So I think, we're hearing a lot of criticism about that, but we're fortunate Will has created a good culture. We do have people that have been driving for years that are committed, and we want to keep those people as long as they're capable to keep driving. We need them. So I think, we can't forget the good job I think that Will has done this year, and he personally has been driving,
I love those kids.
yeah, and you're driving a lot. So I again, in mechanics, and I just think, you've really done a great job, and again, it'd be easy for you to just throw up your arms and go like, why am I still doing this? But we really appreciate the work you've done.
I know a lot of your drivers are retired individuals. There's a few people in Parkway who are retiring who could drive a bus.
Yes, there are.
Maybe even
And
in
we've
this
taken
room.
a lot of opportunity to explain, especially if they're retiring from PSRS.
Right.
It's a little bit better than
Right.
people retiring
I think-
from peers.
Don't you think she could have the mission statement right up there in the front of the
Yeah,
bus?
she could teach every kid the mission statement.
Man, that's what Jeremy Mitchell told us too.
Well, thank you for all the time and effort you've put into it. I know it hasn't been easy to come to a consensus, so. Hopefully we get good results from your survey, and if you need bodies to call people, then, we'll help any way we can. Anyone have any other questions? Okay,
Thank you very much.
thank you very much. Let's see, next up, we have no work session. We have no special meeting to call for. However, I need to ask for a motion and a second to amend the agenda to call for a motion to reconvene the closed meeting that we thought we finished earlier. So,
So
If you don't do it.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Now, may I have a motion and a second that the Board of Education reconvene the closed session on June 15th, 2022, following the regular meeting for the purpose of considering, 1, hiring, firing, disciplining, or promoting of particular employees by the district, and personal information about the employees discussed or recorded, 610.021.3, and 2, preparation, including any discussions of or work product on behalf of a public governmental body or its representatives for negotiations with employee groups, 610.021.9.
Second.
Roll call, please, Nikki.
Mrs. Hopper?
Yes.
Ms. Mapp Franklin?
Yes.
Mr. Reedy?
Yes.
Mr. Schindler?
Yes.
Mr. Spector?
Yes.
Mr. Todd?
Yes, motion carries 6-0. Next, for the rest of you, may I have a motion and a second to adjourn the regular meeting?
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Thank you all for attending, and I'm sorry, we gotta go back into closed.
Get Tiffany.
Just a
Tiffany
little
gets.
bit, but Tiffany gets to have her first